Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now the class can begin. Welcome, Mateus.
You were waiting for
Hello,
Matheus.
everyone.
We've been waiting for you. Now that you're here, we can start the class. Okay. So, first class verbs are not going to be labeled in the dictionary. You're going to see verbo transitivo like this with no space because Navajo is a human and he wrote it like this. So if you search verbo transitivo in the dictionary like this, you'll get all of them, every single one of them. And you can look, it's a really long list of the transitive verbs. So every single transitive verb is a first class verb. Always. Always. Then if you type in verbo intransitivo like this, but he put a space here. I don't know why. Just something he decided to do. My you can tell my autism is like, why did he put a space in this one and not that one? But I've come to learn to live with it. So these intransitive verbs are basically they're first class, but they don't have an object, right? So we're describing an action, but we're not actually giving it an object to do. Then you have your second class verbs, which if you just search for the word classe, it should come up with, you'll see it's like verbo da segunda classe. That's how they're labeled in the dictionary. Those are basically stative verbs. It describes a state. So this comes back to like philosophy of the language and how we think about the language is what is a stative verb versus an active verb? Because in my conception, right, if I'm remembering something, for me that's not a state, that's an action. Like I can choose to remember something or I can choose to forget it. But maybe from a different language's perspective, remembering is something that happens to you, right? Like it's a state that you're in. It's like being happy or being sad. It's something that you are, so you don't really choose to do it. It's just something that you are doing. So in Tupi, ma enduar, this is a second class verb to remember something. Um, so it's like you're describing I am lembrante. Eu sou lembrante. Shema enduar. I am what remembers. You'll notice that here, this one can also have complements with postpositions. So you can say Shema enduar nderese, right? I am remembering of you. So I can say what I'm remembering, but I have to use postpositions. I can't use it as a direct object because this is a verb of the second class. What is Mateo saying? He's saying I remember at ma enduar. So we all have that clear now. We have first class verbs that are transitive, and we have second class verbs that are intransitive, and sometimes we have first class verbs that are intransitive. That's it. Those are the three kinds. There's never going to be a transitive second class verb. The closest thing we get is using these postpositions. The verb itself is not transitive. We can talk about an object, but it's an indirect object, okay? Any questions about that?
I guess I'm just trying to understand the whole construction.
Mm-hmm.
So, is everything separate, or does it kind of work like languages like Finnish, where there's some, I don't know what it's called, concatenation, I think.
Agglutination.
Right. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, that's what's happening here. There's something I want to note about these prefixes, just to get it down. That this is only about this is about form and how I choose to write. Basically, you'll notice that these prefixes for the first class, the form is that you're agglutinating these prefixes to conjugate the verbs. That's it. The first class ones have a, ere, oro, ya, pe, o, and the second class ones have she, nde, ore, yande, pe, I, and then these are pluriforms. So that's a phonetic thing. Has nothing to do with the grammar. But we write it separately because Navajo wrote it separately. I think I'm gonna change it and write it as an actual prefix Because in practice, it looks like a pronoun, but it is a prefix. It's agglutinated to the word. We can't we can't put anything between the she and the ma'induar. I can't put like an adverb there. I can't say I remember you well. She katu ma'induar. I have to say she ma'indua katu. I have to put the adverb at the end of the verb because that she and the ma'induar, they're stuck together. That's more obvious up here when I say aquer and aquer because I'm not writing it with a space. And this is just how Navajo understood the language. These days, we understand the language differently. We understand that this actually is a prefix, even though it doesn't look like one. And I think the fact that these prefixes look a lot like these pronouns also kind of makes it feel better to write them like prefixes because they look like prefixes because they look like subjects, but they're not. They are prefixes. They're not pronouns. Um,
That was what confused me the first time. I thought I saw them as separate words, and then I was like,
yeah,
they kind of don't behave like that. Uh,
exactly. They don't behave like that at all, because we put an R onto the next word when it's pluriform. It's like, okay, how is this pronoun affecting the next word? Well, because it's actually a prefix. It's actually
when you say pluriform, I don't know what that means. Is that like
yeah.
as a separate?
Let me show you that. Maybe I should make a section like right here before we get into any of this describing what a pluriform is. But let's go to let's see. So personal pronouns. This needs some expansion. Let's go to the verbs. So a pluriform is just some verbs they get a different prefix. So let me give you an example, and this is what we did on Saturday. So we'll just start the Saturday class from here because I think this might give you a better idea. This page, the indicative mood, is the most complete page on the website. I still have a little bit to do with it, but this is how you conjugate any verb in Tupianshigu in the indicative mood. All of the instructions are on this page. It's really dense. You're going to be going back to this for months, coming back and looking at it, using it as a reference guide. It took me like 6 months to get it down. Hopefully it'll be quicker because I already have it laid out for all of you guys. So hopefully it'll be quicker for you guys. But it's a lot of information. But this page has all of the rules on how to conjugate a verb. It even has negation at the end. So let's start at the top, and I don't know how far we'll get, but let's describe these concepts. So the indicative mood second class verbs. The reason why I put second class verbs before first class verbs in this guide is because conceptually they're easier to understand because they're really simple. You conjugate them the same way every time. So the thing you want to remember is she, I, nde, you, ore, we, but not you, yande, we, including you, right? Pe, y'all, and I, they. And you'll notice in parentheses, these are pluriforms. So I wrote this here. This is basically what I just described to you. It's a warning letting you know that you cannot do probe drop with a second class verb. Because if you get rid of the pronoun, then we don't know what it is because these are not pronouns. They're prefixes, right? So that's a warning that I have for you that describes that again. These are prefixes. You can't get rid of the pro drop. So with a uniform root, like I described, we have my induar, which is to remember. These are what they all look. So, she ma induar, I remember. Nde ma induar, you remember. Ore ma induar, we remember, but not you. You don't remember. Yande ma induar, we all remember. Pe ma induar, y'all remember. I ma induar, he remembers, she remembers, they remember, it remembers. There can be any third person. So that's basically it. And you'll know that it's not a pluriform. I'll show you that in a moment. But I put these little exercises in here. So given the root aruru, it's also singular. How would I do it for the third person? You can take a moment to think about that, or just shout it out when you're ready.
Is that just in the aruru?
So that one would be you are sad.
Oh,
We're talking about him.
yeah. Do we have the him?
Huh?
I think it would be I aruru.
Exactly. It'll be third person, they. So I write they in my grammar just because it's a singular or plural in English. So I think it covers it pretty well. But, iaruru. Perfect. It's green. If we had put in endearuru, it'll turn red, and then it'll tell you what you're supposed to have chosen. So I'm going to put more of these exercises throughout the exercise. Talu, you want to try the next one? I am sad.
Yaruru.
Shearuru. Perfect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Sweet. I got it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. All right, try one more. Y'all are sad.
Yaruru.
Pearu. Exactly. You got it down now. So this is concrete. This is always going to be the same. This is how you conjugate non-pluriform second-class verbs. That's it. This is it. You've learned it. Super easy. Nice job. Now we get onto pluriform roots, right? So a pluriform root, you'll know that it's a pluriform root because it has this in front of it. It says RS. And so that basically is telling you that in these forms it takes an R in front of it, and in this form it takes an S in front of it. It's not the most clear way that Navajo wrote that. I'll come up with a better system eventually, but basically all you have to know about pluriform roots is that you'll know it's a pluriform because it'll tell you that it's a pluriform. As of right now, we don't have any linguistic way of looking at a root and inherently knowing whether or not that root is a pluriform. There's some prefixes that always end up being pluriform, like ero, but like aquaur, in this case, if I had never studied Tupianchigu and you showed me this word, there's no way for me to know that it's a pluriform. These are things that we just need to memorize, okay? All that it means if it's a pluriform is that it gets an R in front of it. So instead of she aquaur, it's going to be sheraquaur. It's just a phonetic thing. I notice most of the time pluriforms, actually every time, they always start with vowels. So I think it just feels better to say it this way, perhaps. Language is like that, Gabriel. When you're trying to design a language, we don't think like, oh, how about I just make a third of the verbs start with an R for some reason. Like we wouldn't as human beings consciously make those decisions. Like that's insane. Why would you do that? But somehow that's how we evolved. We just evolved to put these R's in front of the words sometimes, and somehow that helps us to not be ambiguous, right? Because there's some words where I could say shetuba, sheuba, sheruba, shesuba, and those are all different words, right? In the base form, they all are the same word, but because one's pluriform and one's not, they end up looking differently when we conjugate them. So yeah, I don't really know why we have pluriforms, but this is it. So we get shiraquaur. I am going through puberty. I'm pubescent. Nderaquaur. You're going through puberty. Oreraquaur. We're going through puberty. Yanderaquaur. We're all going through puberty. Peraquaur. Y'all are going through puberty. And saquaur. So the biggest difference is the E. The E literally turns into an S. It turns into a consonant. It's still the object. This S still represents the third person. Okay, that's still a pronoun, prefix, however you want to think of it. It's the object. And I put 3P here just so you guys, if you click on this, it'll let you know they, e, yo, s. These are all the different ways that the third person manifests itself. We're only studying a couple of them for now, but we'll get to the rest of them later. Okay, so here's another root, esain. If you click on it, you'll notice that it has a T. This T is another form of pluriform verbs. Basically, if you see a letter in a parentheses, either T, R, or S, it means that it's a pluriform. It's very messy. When I redo the dictionary, I'm going to fix it so it's a lot easier to understand. So let's try it. Let's try to conjugate this one. Y'all are happy.
It is sign.
Yeah, exactly. Interessante. And when you type in these things, don't worry about the accents and stuff. I coded it so that it doesn't need to use the accents. Peresai. So y'all are happy. How about she is happy?
C'est sign.
Yeah, exactly. Sesai. It's not too bad. Sasai. Sesai. Perfect. Green. And then here's one more. This is, you want to try pronouncing it too?
I don't know what the. Oh, does that mean it's not a diphthong? It's an actual syllable.
It's a what. It means it's a what. It's a semi-vowel. All the hats in Tupi are semi-vowels.
So era one.
Yeah, era one. Perfect. And that literally means, era means name. Xerera. Xará. My name. So era one means nome ligueiro. Famous name. So you have a known name. How do we say that in Tupi Antigo? This one is, you can see the T, it's a pluriform.
Set up one.
So that one would be he, they, she is famous. But we're saying you are famous. You're famous.
Era one.
That's good. You're using your brain. So that's a first class. That's a first class prefix.
I do remember it.
Here.
Is it just re? Oh, de. Ndera one.
Yeah.
Ndere.
Nderapuan. Nderapuan.
De-
So yeah, it gains an R. So you think it would be easier if we wrote it like this, Nderapuan, all together, or do you think it's harder? Because it doesn't matter.
I don't know if it's like just a matter of being easier or not. It just makes more sense to me
Together.
together. Yeah.
Okay, we'll make that change then. I'll go ahead and make that change because I've been meaning to make that change for a while. It's definitely something that confused me in the beginning, and it took a long time to learn that no, this is not a pronoun. This is a prefix. But you know, even if you were to mention that to Navajo today, he'd be like, I think he'd be a little resistant to that idea. So we got to try to respect his work while at the same time improving it. It's a fine line. So
We take it.
Yeah, go ahead. So yeah, so that's second class. That's second class verbs. You have the uniform and the pluriform, and that's it. Those are the only two differences. Everything else is the same. Are there any questions about that? Gabriel, you have any questions? What else is here? I think that's it.
Not really. I'm just curious. Do you have like verbs that are not pluriform but start with a vowel?
Yes, we do. Let's see. Well, that's a good question. They start with a vowel, but they're not pluriform. Let's see. Mateos, type one in the chat. Let me think. They're not pluriform, but they start with a vowel. Now that you asked me, it's hard for me to think of one. Here, I actually just saw one today. Ereko. Yeah, ereko. Right? Aruru is second class, right? Yeah, aruru is an example, right? She aruru. It's not she aruru, it's she aruru.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, ereko is one. This is to have. Fazer estar consigo, to make something be with you. So that's like ter, to have. So you would say areko. No, wait. This is pluriform. Yeah, it is because it has an ere, ero. So yeah, I guess a lot of the vowels do have pluriform, but not all of them do. It's a little confusing. But I personally think that there's a hidden rule in there that we're just not looking hard enough. I think that there's a rule that makes something pluriform. I'll find it one day. All right, cool. So let's see, we got 20 minutes left. I'm gonna try and show you guys. So first class verbs. We'll get through this fairly quickly. The transitive verbs are super easy. These are probably the easiest verbs in Tupi Antigo. Same rules as the last ones. The thing, there are no intransitive first class pluriforms. Okay, so if you have a first class verb that's transitive, there's no pluriform ever. I don't know why. Maybe that has something to do with the rule that I need to learn. But you'll never find a pluriform for that. So an example is the word that we use the most in Tupi is nyeeng, to speak. Ishe anyeeng. Ishe anyeeng. That means I speak. Ishe anyeeng. Next one. You want to go ahead and read that out for me? Let's see, Gabriel. How about you conjugate each of these for nyeeng.
Okay. Ende erenyeng,
Perfect.
ore oronyeeng,
Perfect.
yande ya nyeeng,
Mm-hmm.
pe nyeeng,
Mm-hmm.
ae o nyeeng.
That's great. That's exactly it. And so that's I speak, you speak, or spoke. Things to remember is that tupi has no tense in the verb. So if you see a verb without any adverbs or anything like that, just like ishe anyeeng, that could be now or it could be in the past. It technically could be in the future too, but we do have a particle to express the future in tupi for verbs. So most likely it's either the present or the past. And that's the thing about these spoken languages, which were never written down. When I'm talking to you, it's obvious whether or not it was in the present or in the past, right? Because we're describing things that are happening now. We're describing the world around us. I'm not trying to describe to you something in paper and then send it to you, and I need to give you all this context because you don't know what happened. It's like, no, we're only talking in Tupi with each other. We're not sending messages. So I think that's why that there's no need for things like verb tense and stuff, because the context makes it more clear when it's a spoken evidence-based language, right? An evidential language rather than like a language where I'm trying to describe a scene to you that you've never seen with your own eyes. And so this is what I was mentioning a little bit earlier. Anyeeng ishupe. So this ishupe is like a postposition, which means to him. So I spoke to them. I spoke to him. We can cover that later when we talk about postpositions. So that's it. That's it for the first class transitive verbs. So now, after those two lessons, you guys know how to conjugate every single intransitive verb in Tupi-Anchigo. Every single intransitive verb. The first class and the second class, right? Not too hard. And the hard part is the transitive verbs. The transitive verbs have a lot of options. So let me just describe to you some of the different realms of a transitive verb. We're going to use this ausubi because ausub is a fun verb. It means to love. So we like to use this verb a lot because people like love. So take a look right here. Let me get rid of that. Make my face smaller. Okay. This table in the dictionary is a conjugation chart. I like to show people this because it's easier to look at things from a top-down perspective and look at like, okay, these are all of the possibilities. There's a lot, but it's not infinity. And it's a lot easier to like conceptualize learning each of these forms when it's right in front of you versus me telling you like, oh, in the third person with an object and this and that and this and that. So you guys are going to keep coming back to these tables. They're really useful. It does it for any of the verbs. But the thing that you need to remember about transitive verbs is that when the object is in the third person, this column right here, they act very similarly to intransitive verbs. So they're conjugated almost in the same way. So let's go back to the dictionary real quick. Intransitive roots, transitive roots. So yeah, let's start right here. So third person object, any subject. So if I'm talking about a third person, whether it's me talking about it or you, I say, I stabbed the fish, you stabbed the fish, he stabbed the fish, we stabbed the fish. No matter what, the fish is in the third person. So all these conjugations are going to look a lot like the intransitive verbs. So let's look at this verb right here, kutuk. Does anyone know what kutukar means? You've seen that before in Portuguese. It comes from tupi, espetar, to stab the fish. So pirá means fish, piranha, right? Piranha means fish with teeth. So pirá is just fish, and then ai kutuki. That literally means I speared a fish, or I'm spearing a fish. So pirá, fish, this is the prefix of me, I, ishe, I, and then this I here, this is the third person object pronoun right here. You can see it. It becomes a semivowel just because of phonetic reasons, but that's the I that we see up here. See how we say ima induar? That E is referring to the third person. So it's the same E, same concept down here where we say aikutuk. So that's how you're going to know whether or not it's a transitive verb or not, is whether or not you see an object between the prefix and the actual verb. Let me open my text edit real quick. Text edit. New. Okay. So if I say aquier, that means I sleep. If you saw something like I quer, this doesn't exist, but this is, you would know that this is an object. Does that make sense? And the fact that you see this I in front of it, 99% of the time means that that's the object. That's a transitive verb of some sort, even if you've never seen that verb before. This doesn't exist. You can't write I can't. I just wanted to show you like the difference of what they look like. So does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So this verb conjugation form of the transitive, we like to say in Tupi that this is the most verb feeling form. Like it feels like a verb because of the way we conjugate it and we give it the person and you can move it around. So this is, to me, this is the most verb-like form that there is. And there's 3 different places that you can put the object in this. So you can say pira aikutuk, I speared a fish. You can say apirakutuk. Notice how we lose the I that was an object. Now pira is going directly in the designated space of the object. You can think of this I as being like a pointer, a variable. It's a reference. It's like a name tag. The I is basically fulfilling the place of the object syntactically so that the actual object, pira, it can go anywhere in the word. It's like a reference point. So pira aikutuk, apirakutuk, or aikutuk pira. All of these things mean the same thing. Okay? Let's see. You can read these warnings and stuff in your own time. So now let's look at the same thing, but with a pluriform. So it works the same way, except just the same as we saw with the second class verbs. If it's pluriform, the I turns into an S. Okay? It's still the same thing. It's the same object. It's a third person. There's nothing grammatically different about it. It's just a phonetic change. So, I saw a fish. Epiak is our verb for to see. Epiak. And this little S in the front doesn't have a period. Lets us know that it's a pluriform transitive verbs. So, pira a sepiak. Pira a I s, the fish. Epiak, saw. Apira epiak. No S. And then asepiak pira. I saw the fish. Same thing. The order doesn't matter. Now, let's go through this real quick. So, ishe a e asepiak. I saw them. Ende a e ere sepiak. You saw them. Ore a e oro sepiak. We saw them, but you didn't. Yande a e yasepiak. We all saw them. We all saw that. Pen a e pesepiak. You all saw them, and ae osepiak. They saw them. In this case, ae, it's a little ambiguous, right? Since I told you you can put the object wherever you want. It's kind of like Which one is the subject and which one is the object? Sometimes this can be ambiguous and we have to put more words to describe it. All right. So that's what it looks like to conjugate when the object is in the third person. These are kind of a little overview of what it looks like to conjugate when the object isn't the third person. So that means that I'm talking about a verb that I'm doing to you, or a verb that you're doing to me, or a verb that they're doing to me, or a verb that they're doing to you. Those are the 4 different cases, right? And so basically when the object isn't the third person, we can have the subject be the third person. We're going to follow this verb order. And you notice that the object pronoun that we use looks exactly like the second class verb prefixes. It's the same prefix. So in this case, the third person is the subject. The object is always, always, always going to go to the left of the verb. Always. In any of these situations, the object will always be stuck to the left of the verb. So if you're ever questioning, oh, I see a she and an ae here, which one's the object? Look to the left of the verb. So for example, shekutuk ae. They stabbed me. He stabbed me. They speared me. Shekutuk ae. The spearing is happening to me. She. And then you could also say ae shekutuk. Notice how the ae, the subject, can either go in the beginning, or it can go at the end, or we can just not say it at all if it's obvious. But the important thing is that the object is next to the verb. Okay, that's the only thing that really matters. Any questions about that? Or is that clear? A lot of third person, first person words being thrown around. In this case, right? In this case, if it's the third person subject, that means it's possible for me or you to be the object, right? In this case, if it was you, it would be ndekutuk. That's the only difference. Shekutuk, indekutuk, pekutuk, right? These are all the different ones. If the second person is the subject and the third person is not the object, then that means that the object has to be a first person, right? You're doing something to me. So if you do something to me, we actually use different pronouns, yepe, and they always go at the end. So if second person is the subject and first person is the object, then it will always be object, verb, subject, like shekutuk, and then the subject is going to be this special form. And then in the last case is when I'm doing something to you, or we do something to y'all. That's first person acting on second person. In this case, we have a special object, which is oro. Oro looks a lot like the subject prefix up here, right? Ore, ae, oro sepyak. The thing that's different is this S. So if you're not sure if you're saying, oh, is this oro like ore, or is this like oro like tu as an object, the way that you tell the difference is whether or not it has the object pronoun. If it has the object pronoun, it's talking about we. If there's no S or I here, see it's just orokutuk, it's not oroi kutuk, then we're talking about I'm doing something to you. I stab you. She oro kutuk. Okay? And these further ones break it down a little bit more. So third person subject, first person object. She kutuk ae. He stabbed me. They stabbed me. Nde kutuk ae. They stabbed you. Ore kutuk ae. They stabbed us. Yande kutuk ae. They stabbed us, including you. And pe kutuk ae. They stabbed y'all. Okay? And then an example with epyak, to see. And you notice in this one I put the ae in the front because it doesn't matter. Ae sherepyak. They, me, saw. They saw me. Ae repyak. They saw you. Ae ore repyak. They saw us. Ae yande repyak. They saw us as well. And ae perepyak. They saw y'all. And I should put another one, but if you wanted to say they saw them, Can anyone guess what that would be? They saw them. This might be a little bit of a stretch. It would be ae sepyak. So it's the same thing as the second class verbs with the pluriform, conjugated in the same exact way. So it becomes an S for the third person. Ae sepyak, they saw them. The second subject, right? And let me remind you, you're going to be coming back to this many times. This is just the first time I'm explaining this all to you in one go. We can spend like a whole day talking about this form or a whole day talking about another form. You guys just kind of got to do some exercises and see how it feels to you. But yeah, if the second person is the subject and the first person is the object of a transitive verb, then this is what it's going to look like. So either she kutuk yepe, you stabbed me. Ore kutuk yepe, you stabbed us. She kutuk peyepe, y'all stabbed us. Or ore kutuk peyepe, or y'all stabbed me, and then ore kutuk peyepe, y'all stabbed us. So you notice there's only 4 cases because, you know, it's very constrained. You can't use yande here because if I say like yande kutuk yepe, that means you stabbed us, including you. That doesn't make sense, right? Unless it's a murder-suicide, then in that case it does make sense, but that's a little too poetic. So we'll only use ore in these cases. And then the same goes for if the first person is the subject but the second person is the object. The only difference is that we get these special object pronouns, oro. And I think that it comes from prototypi ere, right? We say ere nyeeng, you speak. I think this oro comes from ere, but it's just a sound change, but we only use it to talk about the object. And interestingly enough, we'll use the she rather than the ishe as the subject here. You can say ishe oroepyak. You can say that. You can also say she. So shere oroepyak or just oroepyak. You can get rid of the she. Because in this case, it's always going to be the first person who is the subject in this oro or opo. So oroepyak, I or we saw you, and opoepyak, I or we saw y'all. Okay? And that's all of them. Negation is there, but we can talk about it another time because we only have 3 minutes. This was a lot of information. I want to reiterate that this is a reference for you. You're going to have to practice these in your own time. And a really good way is this quiz I have here right on my website. So if you click on this quiz, it'll basically generate, there's like an infinite number of questions. It'll generate these and it'll talk about modes that we haven't talked about. We've only talked about the indicative. But if you just play this game for a few hours, it's kind of like a way of training your brain to recognize these patterns without actually studying them. You just look and say, oh, there's a T there. I know that that's a permissive, which you guys don't know. Oro, right? We've seen oro. That means the subject is going to be, the object is you, right? We just learned that. So ende, and then yande, that's the subject. So then you click enviar, and then it lets you know what the root word was. Mopichoir, right here. You can find that. And then it's letting you know what the object was, what the subject was, and then a definition. So this is a great way to expose yourself to new verbs and also to kind of drill into your brain like what is what and how it works. So that you don't have to study it, you can just play this game and eventually your brain will start to pick up on the patterns and be like, oh yeah, that's a third person this, second person that, or one or the other. So yeah, that's the lesson. Any questions, comments, concerns?
All the questions.
Feel free, ask them. I know where to be.
The game is really smart. I'm gonna do that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, there's all the other modes like circumstantial and gerund in there, so I should add a feature to restrict that. I'll let you know when I do. But for now, you know, if you get those wrong, at least you're being exposed to them a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that because I feel like it's good to learn in that more intuitive way too. So
yeah,
to be exposed to things I don't know is good.
Totally, yeah. That's how I do it too with Anki. Like I personally, when I learn new languages, I do my best to drill in like use, and then once I have an idea of how to form sentences, then I go back and I learn the grammar and I try to apply rules to things that I already feel. We want to think about the things that we're feeling. So definitely try that quiz. Try it a bit. It helped me a lot. Until I actually made that quiz, I actually didn't have very good conjugation skills. Now I think I'm actually very good at conjugating verbs in Tupi. Um, but before that, I had no idea. So definitely recommend the quiz.
Is there anything else you recommend to do what you did to be like more exposed to the language and get the patterns more intuitively and then organize them?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Is doing that and drilling down the quiz because that'll get you the patterns. This book in particular, I put a PDF to it. It has a lot of exercises. I've just been a little bit busy, but maybe one of you guys can help me or something. But I want to start digitizing some of the exercises in here and sending them out to you so that you guys can actually do some of the exercises that I did. Because it's good stuff. But he kind of uses really random words that have to do with like the history of Tupi. So he'll talk about like ugara, which is canoa, and all like ships and Portuguese, and he's talking about the first time that the Portuguese met the indigenous on the coast of Brazil and all that. And so some of the words he uses are like not words that you really would care to learn. Like they're words that Mateos and I, when we talk every day in Tupi with each other, like I'm never gonna say those words to him. So part of me is kind of like I like the exercises, but I want to change the words to be words that you actually are gonna use when you speak in Tupi, not some old words from the 16th century that nobody ever has a use for anywhere. But yeah, I'll send you guys some exercises. But that quiz is probably the best thing you can do just to start, and also just anytime you see a Tupi word, um, look it up in the dictionary. You can search it in Portuguese. Try to think about how it might be spelled using our Tupi orthography, and you can see on my phone. Oh, my camera's here. You can save the Tupi Antigo thing as an app, like on if you have an Android. You can save it as a Chrome app on your shortcut, so you
You
can
can
keep it
do
there.
that on iPhone too.
Perfect. So you can just keep it there, keep it on your phone. I guess you live in Boston, so you're not gonna have as many opportunities to just put Tupi names in your phone. But anytime you see it,
Find opportunities. I'll do my thing. So well, I just wanted to tell you guys one thing that made me join the class. My mom always told me that my name was Tupi, and then I learned that it's a lie.
it's not. Yeah,
And that's what made me interested in the language at
because yeah,
first.
that's a
And then I
Tupi
was
name.
like, wait a
Yeah, there's
minute.
no L in Tupi. We don't have that sound. It's not possible for your name to be Tupi,
As soon
unfortunately.
as I learned that, I was like, wait a minute.
No, that's the
So
hardest
yeah,
thing. Is
not true.
is
I've been lying my whole
Mateos and I are always getting messages from people being like, "Oh, can you please tell me my great grandfather who just passed away always told me that this meant this, and I just want someone who's a professional to tell me that it's true." And I look at the etymology and I'm like, "Yeah, it's true. It does mean that." And I'm like on the inside, I'm like, this guy was crazy. This guy this guy never met anyone, you know. So it's pretty funny that unfortunately, and that's the sad part about the fact that this stuff isn't being taught, because people get told these things and they don't have anywhere to check. They don't have anywhere to be like, well, let me see if that's true. So you just gotta believe it. You gotta be like, well, my grandpa told me that, so I must believe it. And sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's cool because these words do get preserved, but most of the time they don't. Most of the time it's very different than what it actually used to mean.
So yeah, so my name is made up. Don't tell anyone. I'm gonna keep saying this to people. You know.
I won't tell anyone. Let's see. Let's see if we can find you a Tupi name. Maybe there's a Taru. Let's see. Tartaruga. Tarure. How about that? Lagarto grande. You like that name? Tarure.
No. The full name is Taluama.
Taluama.
So It's definitely made up. But I'll say taruri, tartaruga. That fits my personality.
Taruama. Yeah, taruama. Ama is like in Tupi, that's like a future suffix. So it's kind of means like you are what will become talu.
So I'll be a tartaruga.
Yeah, exactly. You're a baby tartaruga, basically. You're an egg of a tartaruga, is what that would imply. You're something that will become a tartaruga.
Profound, profound. No, okay. I can keep saying my name's Tortuguita.
There you go. No, it's fine. I went to the zoo recently, and there was the jabuchi, right? They have the giant turtles, which are called jabuchi, and and I made a joke to the guy. I was like, "Oh, do you feed him jabuchi kava?" Because the word like yabuti actually comes from that word. Yabuchi kava comes from that word. It's like referring to them, and the zoo guy goes, "No, it sounds similar, but those words have nothing to do with each other." And he said that to like the little kids that were next to me. I didn't want to be like in front of the like zoo guy, like actually, it does come from the same. But it just goes to show that even professional people who are teaching kids, they don't know these things, and so like to him, he's just like, "Oh yeah, jabuchi and jabuchi kava have nothing to do with each other." It's like they actually do. They actually do have something to do with each other.
Yeah, I saw somewhere that the easiest way to impress someone is to learn something that very little people know.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, like if the P is your specialty, you could say anything because the chances that someone around you knows something, it could be like, yeah, no, those words don't come from the same root. Like
It's true.
was just unlucky to have you there that actually knew something about it.
That's kind of like the video that Mateus and I just made guessing the ages of those women that speak Wayampi. I don't know if y'all saw that, but we don't speak that language. We're using it's like someone who speaks Portuguese trying to understand French. And she didn't respond and all the comments are like, "I wonder if they got it right because we're the people who probably know the best whether or not we got it right and we don't know whether or not we got it right." So, you know, even and that video did really well, and it's the video that we have the least amount of confidence about what we're talking about, and it did so well, and like we don't know if what we said was true. So it just goes to show, yeah, like if it's a topic that nobody knows about, you're just immediately a genius. It doesn't matter whether or not you're actually a genius or not. Interesting. Alrighty. Any more comments, Gabriel? How do you feel about your conlang now? You got any new ideas?
I did. I would just like to thank you like a lot for all this. I've been like flirting with the Piantigo for a long while now, but I've never had like such comprehensible resources available to me to like to search things and to understand the structure of the language and stuff like that. Like I had some vague ideas about some things, but it was very hard to like truly understand things. Just this class clarified so much stuff to me. So thank you a lot.
Sweet, you're welcome. And so I guess that's the end. I'll give you two some homework assignments, okay? Your homework assignment is to find a simple meme that you like in Portuguese or English and translate it to Tupi. Post it in the group. Does that sound good? You just use the dictionary, put it together, use the best grammar that you have, but don't worry about it. I just want to see you try to make a concept in Tupi, put it in the group, and then Mateus and I will correct it. Does that sound good? We'll try to find
Yeah,
better ways. And I think that's the best way to learn is by trial and error. All right,
yeah.
sweet.
Now you spoke my language. Memes is
Memes
my
and
language.
trial and error. That's the best way to learn. All right, well, without further ado, thank you very much for joining my giant class. Ciao, valeu, falou.